Good morning, those of you guys who are joining up. Just going to give it a minute or two like yesterday as more people join. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope you guys like the song choice this morning. A little social distancing reminder. Again, good morning to everybody who's joining in late now. Just going to give it another minute, let some people join in. Hey, there we go. Everybody's commenting today now. Yeah, when you guys get in, just make sure you say good morning. You like that dad song? Come on now. How's everybody doing today? Yeah. All right, just going to give it another minute. Go grab some water. If you guys need anything, need a snack, water, whatever it might be, go for it. Good morning. Hey, Gage, you're on your own account this morning, not your mom's. That's good. Morning, Carly. Morning, Miss Lading. Alex, Zach, Drew, both Drews. Christina, Luke, Perry, Evan, Zoe, Pedro, Sana, Brendan, Morgan, Jake, Mr. Delano, and Armand. Armand can't get enough of these streams, guys. He actually attended yesterday's stream too. Armand, stay after the stream. I need some help, man. You got to give me some Warzone tips here for Call of Duty. I need to increase my skills here. And that goes for anybody, by the way. Think we might have some. You're not good. It's okay. I'm not good either. Remember, I'm a dad. My skills have diminished. Think we might have some teachers here watching just to kind of see what this is like. Gage is better. I find that hard to believe. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, you like that? Ironically, it's from Starbucks in Taiwan. And they're doing a great job of handling the coronavirus. The only thing is that, you have no privacy rights. They're monitoring everybody via their cell phone who's been either exposed to or put in quarantine to make sure that you are not moving around inside of the country when you're not supposed to, which is a little unnerving. I'm not going to lie. Wow, Gage getting all the hype here. All right, Gage. Well, maybe you should stream. Okay, guys. So let's get started. Talk a little bit about what we're going to do today. Hopefully you watched this morning's daily video. But first thing, if you guys could take out the worksheet that I put up on Classroom yesterday, we're going to start by going over that. That would be, hold on, I forgot to make two windows here to see your comments and then see what we're talking about in class. All right, it's going to be worksheet 21.1, okay, which is the tax and transfer multiplier along with the answer. No, I have the answer key. You don't have the answer key. All right. So if you could just pull that up, and then we'll get started with that. So if you guys have 21.1 in front of you, what I'll do is this: I'll ask the question. I'll let you guys give me an opportunity, or give you guys an opportunity to give an answer in the comments, and then we'll go from there. Okay. As always, if you guys have any questions at all during class, just post it in the comments, and I will make sure to answer those questions as best as I can. All right. So hope everybody's doing good, and we'll start with that. Okay. All right, awesome. So worksheet 21.1. The first question is: transfer multiplier the same thing as spending multiplier? Jake, no, the transfer multiplier is the same thing as the tax multiplier. Government transfers also are going to have an initial round of savings, kind of like a tax. So say that we do go through and we start giving out this $1,000 or $2,000 stimulus package that everybody seems to be talking about in the last 24 hours. What would happen is that if you give money to these households, some households are going to save it, and some households will save a portion and then spend a portion of it. So it operates the exact same way as the tax multiplier. That's a great question. Okay, so let's look at it. All right, so number one, a recessionary gap of $40 billion is present in the economy, and the marginal propensity to consume is 0.75. How could Congress close the gap? I don't know why it says the tax. It's an error. How could Congress close the gap using a change in taxes? Okay, so first thing we need to know for this is we have to figure out the multiplier. So in order for us to figure out the tax multiplier, we have two options. We can either do find the spending multiplier first, which is 1 over the MPS, and then we subtract 1, or we could just go right to the tax multiplier, which in this case would be the MPC over the MPS. Our formula for this would be 0.75 over 0.25, which is going to give us a multiplier of 3. Okay. And again, the reason why it's 0.75 over 0.25 is this. 0.75 is our marginal propensity to consume, whereas the marginal propensity to save is 0.25. Remember, MPC plus MPS are always going to be equal to 1. So that is how we got that. All right. So our tax multiplier in this case is going to be 3. We would then take the gap of $40 billion. We would divide that by 3, and we would get an uneven or non-round number, and we would get $13.3 billion repeating. And that would be our decrease in taxes. So in order to fix the recessionary gap for number one, we would cut taxes by $13.3 billion. Okay. Let me know if you guys have any questions about number one in the chat. I will start with number 2, and then I can always come back to it. All right. So number 2, the government wants to use a change in taxes to close the gap in the economy. The marginal propensity to consume is 0.8. The first question asks is, how large is the gap? So right now in the chat, if you guys could let me know, how large is the gap? All right, good. Okay, it is I believe it's billion. Yeah, $100 billion. Okay, so we have a $100 billion gap. Nice, good job, guys. We have a $100 billion gap, and so now we want to know is what is the amount in direction, whether we're going to increase or decrease. Okay, taxes needed to close the gap. So we have a $100 billion gap. We need to figure out what our tax multiplier is. Real quick. In the chat, let me know what the tax multiplier is. Again, if you need a reminder, the tax multiplier would be MPC over MPS, or in this case, it's going to be 0.8 over 0.2. So what is the tax multiplier? Good. Tax multiplier in this case is 4. So this is real simple. We have a $100 billion gap. We know that our tax multiplier is 4. We'll take that $100 billion. We will divide it by 4, and it will give us a $25 billion decrease in taxes. Okay. Not going to lie, guys, it's a little weird. I ask a question and then there's a delay. So I feel like I'm just kind of sitting here doing nothing while there's silence while I wait for you guys to respond. It's kind of odd. Hey, All right, we're up to 25 people. This is good. Well attended. All right. So answer number 2, $25 billion decrease in taxes. It's a decrease. Sorry about that. Oh, no. I'm sorry. We have an inflationary gap in this case. It would be a $25 billion increase in taxes to close the gap. So that's for clarification. The gap, we're producing at $250 billion in real GDP. Our economy's potential is at $150 billion. We need to shrink or contract the economy. So we would therefore increase taxes by $25 billion to reduce that $100 billion gap. That's a good question. Sorry if there's any confusion on that one, guys. All right, let's look at number 3. Okay, number 3, the government wants to use a change in transfer payments to close the gap in the economy. Okay, the marginal propensity to consume in this case is 0.9, which is real simple. It means our MPS is 0.1. The first question that we're going to be asked is, what is the size of the gap? I'm just going to do this one because it's easier. So we know that our economy's potential is producing, sorry, I have to make this larger. There we go. We know that the economy is potential is to produce at 160 billion. Okay, and we're currently producing at a level of $79 billion. Okay, so that means we have a gap of 81 billion. All right. So the next question that's going to be asked is, what is the amount and direction, increase or decrease, of the change in transfers needed to close the gap? All right. So in this case, I want you guys to let me know. What is our tax multiplier, and what are we doing to transfer payments? Are we increasing, decreasing, and how much? When you have the answer, or if you already have it, just go ahead and put it in the chat, in the comments, and we'll go from there. Yeah, are you saying transfer payments in terms of Social Security? Yeah, Social Security disability would be considered a transfer payment. Things like what's it called? Welfare checks, unemployment, things like that. That would be an example. Okay, good. All right, so we know that the transfer or tax multiplier in this case is going to be 9. Good job. Since we have a recessionary gap, we would increase transfer payments by $9 billion. Great job, guys. Good stuff. Yes, Carly. Believe it or not, you don't have to ask for permission to go anywhere. And yesterday's afternoon stream, we actually had my son came downstairs and decided to use the bathroom with the door wide open, and he flushed the toilet. And so I had to, it seemed like I was yelling on yesterday's stream. Why would it increase, Zach? Because we have a recessionary gap. We're only producing $79 billion in output, but yet our economy's potential says we can produce out $160 billion. So we're trying to stimulate the economy. We're going to use expansionary fiscal policy here, and we're going to give people money to help them increase their spending. The result of number 3, Zach, and for anybody else who's also wondering the same thing, as we increase transfer payments by $9 billion, aggregate demand is now going to increase. It's going to slide to the right, and it's going to intersect where the SRAS and the LRAS sit on, or they kind of meet each other on the LRAS. So that's going to help us get back to our full potential. That's a great question. Any other questions on 1, 2, or 3, guys? Okay, let's look at number 4. All right, number 4 says create a table showing the tax and transfer multiplier for each of the following MPCs. Okay, so for number 1, our MPC is 0.5. What is our multiplier, guys? It's kind of a trick here. Oh, that's not a trick, sorry. Just put the multiplier for number 1 in the chat. Yeah, good job. Oh, see, and then there's Pedro. He's got to one up everybody, even when he's not in school. It's his time to shine, guys. All right. So believe it or not, Pedro was correct in terms of the answer. Hi, Lucas. How you doing? Ban Pedro. All right. So for number 1, the MPC is 0.5. Okay. The multiplier is going to be 1. For number 2, the MPC is 0.75. The multiplier will be 3. For number 3, the MPC is 0.8. The multiplier will be 4. And for number 5, the MPC is 0.9. That makes the multiplier also 9. Good morning, Wes. How we doing? Okay. Guys, that's it for the worksheet. Anybody have any questions on the worksheet? All right. So with that being said, let's do this. We are going to start our lesson for the day. Believe it or not, today and Monday's class, we're probably not going to spend too much time. We're about finished the unit. So the plan for today is to go over and teach you guys the Phillips curve, do some practice in terms of how the Phillips curve and fiscal policy kind of work together and what happens in both the productions possibilities curve, the business cycle, the aggregates model, and the Phillips curve. And we're going to do some practice for that. I assigned you guys, I put up on Google Classroom today, the FRQ for this unit. You may work together if you would like to. I would like you guys to work on that possibly tomorrow or today, however you want to do it, and then hand that in on Monday. How you're going to hand that in, if you could just take a picture of your graphs and the answers and then submit that. If you do work in groups, again, it's only 1 submission per group, and then we'll go from there. We do not have class tomorrow because we don't meet tomorrow. So I will not be streaming tomorrow. I'll give you guys your 3-day weekend that you would normally have from me. And then we'll pick it up again on Monday. On Monday, this is the plan. Monday, I'm going to go over the FRQ with all of you while you are at home. So we'll go through it one by one in terms of the unit. And then 2, we are going to, I'll do some review and answer some questions about the unit itself. I will assign you guys an Albert.io probably tomorrow, and you can work on that. And then finally on Monday, I am going to give you guys your assessment. So Monday's class is going to be your test, okay? And that's how we're going to do that. I'm still trying to figure out how we're going to work the test. It'll most likely end up as like a crowdsourced kind of like group test. But again, I really don't care. It's just more or less about you guys kind of doing the content. And if you work with each other, it's not a big deal. Okay. So as for the groups for the FRQ, look, this is an unprecedented time. So obviously the normal restriction of just having you guys work with your partner is going to be lifted here. I will let you decide, but let's make sure that the groups are not excessive. So can we cap it at 4? I think that's a fair rate of 4 people per group. Obviously, there's no way that I can like prove that you only worked for 4 people of a group. So it's going to be kind of like the honor code here, if you will, and you know, trusting each other. But 4 is great for me. Use your own judgment. And remember, if you are using this, we talked about public goods in the beginning of the year. If you are just going to use this and hop on the bandwagon and be an FRQ, like just groupie where you're just going to sit there and take all the answers, you know, that's the free rider problem. And it's up to your group to kind of regulate your own kind of economy there and make sure that people are actually doing their part. The only way to learn this is actually to participate. Okay. So that's my answer for that. Do you guys have any other questions about what you can expect for the test and stuff? And again, on Monday, I'll have better guidelines for the test. I received some emails today about people who still did not. That's messed up, Chippy. Now, Chippy, if you're going to call out, you know, Zach, let's be real here. There may or may not have been some FRQs that I feel like you probably didn't pull your weight, but you know, I can't confirm nor deny that. So we'll just have to work off of internet and speculation. I did receive some emails about people not having tests to do test corrections. I plan on going to school tomorrow, even though the building is closed. Mr. Flynn's going to let me in. And so I'm going to go pick up any tests that I might have that you guys did not get back because if you're absent when I passed it all back. Okay. From there, yeah, I know, Chippy. Love you, man. From there, what I'll do is I will take pictures of your test and I will email them to you directly. So if you're missing your test, you can't do test corrections. And from there, like you're nervous about getting test corrections done by Monday, don't worry. I'll take a picture of it and I'll send it to you. If you hadn't had your test, obviously I'll give you an extension on when they are due. Okay? Man. All right, so let's look at this. Right now, what I would like you guys to do is pull up. So I'm going to make you guys go back to a different PowerPoint. So it's in the notes on Google Classroom that I sent you. It's going to be PowerPoint 3.3, okay, which is the aggregate demand, aggregate supply in the short run and long run PowerPoint. And I would like you guys to specifically go to slide 13. So I'm going to give you guys a second, okay? You can go to slide 13, pull that up. When you are at that slide, please just, type 1 in the chat. And this way I know I can kind of get going here. Listen, Arya, these are trying times, okay? You can start charging now and make a market for your services when it comes to these FRQs, and that goes for anybody. Obviously, I have no control of the market conditions outside of the classroom, so it's up to you guys. Yeah, it is slide 13. All right, so we are here. All right, let's look at this. Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit about the Phillips curve. Now, normally I like to start with this slide and kind of draw this on the board to give you an idea what we're talking about. The idea is this. We know that gaps exist. So ideally, the economy can only be in one of 3 places at any given time. We can be currently at full employment. We can be in a recessionary gap, which means that we are underproducing and we have a high level of unemployment. Or we can be in an inflationary gap where it means we're overproducing, resource prices are starting to heat up, and price level is starting to rise. So if you look at the PowerPoint, on the left-hand side, we have our productions possibilities curve, and on the right-hand side, we have the business cycle. Now, this is something that's very, very important to notice, and let's look at this. At first, in the PPC, the red line lets us know that that is full employment. Remember, full employment means that we have the number of people who are employed inside of the natural rate of unemployment. We know in the United States, the natural rate of unemployment is between 4 and 6%. For all intents and purposes throughout econ and throughout this course, we're just going to assume that the natural rate of unemployment is 5%. So that red line on the productions possibilities curve represents production at full employment. That yellow dot represents that one kind of point on or one place, I guess you could say, that the economy is in, and that would be producing at full employment. So if we look at the productions possibilities curve, we see the yellow dot on the red curve, letting us know that we're producing whatever combination of capital and consumer goods represents our economy's potential at full employment. And then if we look to the right at the business cycle, we can see that the yellow dot is on the line, on real GDP, and it is currently just stable and steady. So we know that unemployment is going to be at the natural rate, and we know that we're going to be producing at our potential. In this slide, that yellow point in our aggregates model is going to let us know that we're actually in long-run macroeconomic equilibrium. So that means that aggregate demand, short-run aggregate supply, and long-run aggregate supply are all going to intersect at the same point, and we are producing at our economy's potential. So that's what the yellow point means when it says full employment. Now, there's something that's a little bit confusing if you haven't looked at it, and that is the blue line, which is the outer bound, line on the productions possibilities curve. It says max capacity and 0% unemployment. We know that an inflationary gap happens when we are technically overemployed, which means that we would be under that 5% unemployment rate. Prior to the coronavirus outbreak, the United States level of unemployment was at 3.5%. So technically, you could say that we were overemployed and we were kind of pushing closer to that inflationary gap. What that blue line represents is this. If we were at 0% unemployment, obviously our economy's potential would be far greater or we'd be producing rather at a point that is greater than our economy's potential, because 0% unemployment is unnatural. It is natural to have unemployment in the economy, whether it's frictional unemployment, which is the good type of unemployment, which means that you and I are trying to find jobs that better suit our skills and needs, or structural unemployment, which is the disappearance of markets. And believe it or not, at the end of all of this, when it comes to coronavirus and the outbreak and how we're all learning and working now, we could see some major changes to the structure of our economy. And this is something that all of you guys, while taking this class, are going to probably have a front row seat to see how this all plays out. Okay, so that's what the blue line means. So the blue line is maximum capacity. That's 0% unemployment. Red line is that 4 to 6 or 5% unemployment. And anything inside of that means that we're just not producing to our potential. So let's start with the red dot. The red dot beyond the red line, that is an inflationary gap. Our unemployment is below 5%. We are producing at a greater rate or a greater level of output. So on our production's possibilities curve, our combination of capital goods and consumer goods is greater than that we could produce at full employment. And if we look at our business cycle, okay, on the right-hand side, you can see that corresponding point, right? We're producing at a point that is above the normal trajectory of real GDP over time, right? We know that real GDP should increase over time as output and as we maintain full employment. Since we are overemployed, we're actually producing at a point that is greater, okay, than full employment real GDP. Okay. Now, the last thing would be the green point, and the green point represents our recessionary gap. So that means that we are going to be producing at a point inside of full employment. That means that we have an unemployment rate that is going to be greater than 5%. Obviously, the closer it is to the origin of the graph, okay, or the 0 point rather, what's going to happen is that the higher the rate of unemployment. Okay, so that green dot represents a recessionary gap. And you can see the combination of capital and consumer goods that we are producing is not up to our potential. Okay, so that means that we have high levels of unemployment, okay, and low levels of output. If we go to our business cycle on the right-hand side, you can see that we are producing in a trough, right? So the inflationary gap is at the peak, okay, and the recessionary gap is the trough. Now, remember, recessions most often are thought of as like the bottoming out, right? The worst part of the economy. That's not true. Recession starts, okay, when the decline starts, right? So recession isn't the trough. Recession is the decline. The trough is where it bottoms out, right? So the trough would be 2008, the Great Depression, things like that, okay? Any questions on how the production possibilities curve and the business cycle relate to each other? I'll give you guys an opportunity to ask in the chat before we move on to a different PowerPoint. Okay, there are no questions. So what I would like you guys to do right now is this. If you could please pull up the 3.5 PowerPoint on the Phillips curve, which has already been shared with you. And we are going to start with slide number 3. Okay. When you are at slide number 3 of the 3.5 PowerPoint, just give me a 1 or just let me know, say something in the chat so I know when to start. What's up with the F in the chat? Somebody explain that to me. I'm old. Sorry. All right, cool. We have a lot of people that are responding, so I'm going to start. All right, so today, guys, we're going to talk about the Phillips curve. The Phillips curve was started by an economist named A.W. Phillips, okay? And what he realized is that there's actually a trade-off between unemployment and inflation. So the Phillips curve is going to give us, F to pay respects. Interesting. So the Phillips curve is actually going to just tell us the relationship between unemployment and inflation. When we draw the curve on the vertical axis, it's going to be inflation. On the horizontal axis, it's going to be unemployment. If we look at the slide number 3 here in the PowerPoint, it says that there's an inverse relationship between unemployment and inflation, and this is in general. Typically, when we have periods of high inflation, unemployment is dramatically low. So if you look at May of 2009, okay, to December of 2009, the unemployment rate, okay, was below 2%, right? So if you see that, what is the inflation rate? The inflation rate's, oh, sorry, I reversed the two. Okay, so if you look at 2009, May 2009, December 2009, the blue line represents unemployment, the red line represents inflation. If you look at the unemployment rate was about 8%. And if you look at the rate of inflation, it was below 2%. It was about 1%. So, and this kind of makes sense, right? The more people who are unemployed, the less spending that happens. As a result, because there is a relationship between consumers and producers in the markets, consumers are going to negotiate much lower prices to purchase goods. Producers, in order to sell goods and to clear their inventory, are going to have to bring prices down because no one is spending. We are seeing this right now. There's a ton of different kind of market operations and things that producers are doing to stimulate people buying things. I don't know if you guys know this, but on Friday, tomorrow, Universal Studios, NBC Universal Studios, is going to start releasing brand new movies that are currently in theaters for us to stream. Well, why are they doing that? Since movie theaters across the country are starting to close, they have to maintain revenue streams. So what they're doing is they're going to make these movies live stream available the day they come out, and you will pay an increased price. Well, here's the deal. Talking about hitting a recession, right? We're starting to come down that curve in the business cycle. As a result, we don't go see movies. Normally, for myself and my family, because we go to movies quite a bit, it would cost between 50 and 60 bucks to bring the family to the movie theater. Now, when Trolls World Tour comes out on April 10th and it's going to be live streaming, I plan on buying that stream at home with my kids. Yeah, I will pay the $20 it costs to stream that for a period of 48 hours, but it's still almost 3 times less than what I would pay if I actually went to the movies. This is kind of a brilliant idea. And now we kind of get to understand, or at least see, the relationship between producers and consumers in the market. If we can't buy the product, producers have to come up with some new, innovative way to bring consumers to market. We live in a price-directed market system. The best way to bring in new consumers, lower the price. Your willingness to purchase is always going to increase, okay? So that's the relationship between unemployment and inflation, and that's the Phillips curve. So let's kind of dive right into it and look at what the Phillips curve looks like. Okay, so what I would like you to do right now is let's go to slide 6. Okay, slide 6. I'll give you guys like, a second or two, and then I'm going to start. You don't need to respond in the chat. Does anybody have any questions or comments up to this point? Again, as always, just shoot them in there in the chat, even throughout class, and I will make sure to stop what I'm doing and kind of get to it. All right, so the Phillips curve, and we're going to practice. You guys are going to practice drawing these today, and we'll do some live feedback. So the Phillips curve, as you guys can see in the graph there, on the vertical axis is inflation, on the horizontal axis is unemployment. We have 2 different types of curves of the Phillips curve. We have the short-run Phillips curve, and we have the long-run Phillips curve, which is not pictured here in this slide. Well, what does the short-run Phillips curve let us know? The short-run Phillips curve just gives us that basic relationship between inflation and unemployment. As unemployment increases, so as we move, okay, to the right, further along on the horizontal axis, inflation is going to decrease. So we would move from one point all the way down to the next, right? It's kind of like demand. As inflation decreases, unemployment increases, okay, and vice versa. As unemployment decreases, inflation increases. It's a very, very basic relationship. Okay, so when the economy is overheating, unemployment is low, but inflation is high. When there's a recession, unemployment is high and inflation is low. Okay, let's go to slide. Nope, I don't want to do that now. Let's go to slide 8. And then I'm going to give you guys a couple tricks and things that if you have notebooks available for you today, maybe write a note. I don't know if you can open a Google Doc, whatever it might be, but I'm going to kind of give you guys a little bit of a trick in terms of, well, what happens when something changes in the aggregates model, and what happens when it changes in the Phillips curve. Okay, so we're looking at slide 8, and we're going to look at the difference between the short run and the long run. The long run Phillips curve is very, very simple. We already understand the long run aggregate supply represents potential output of an economy at full employment, and the long run the long run aggregate supply curve is synonymous with the natural rate of unemployment. Well, it's kind of the same thing for the Phillips curve. Okay. In the long run, there really isn't a trade-off between inflation and unemployment because, as we always said, in the long run, everything kind of works out. So the long-run Phillips curve is, in fact, vertical. And it's vertical because it represents the natural rate of unemployment. At any point in time, the natural rate of unemployment is about 5%. We know that in the long run, this number is going to hold true unless we have some type of major structural unemployment that we're not able to remake new markets to get these people employed. So all you need to know about the LRPC, natural rate of unemployment. When we produce or we are at a point to the right of the LRPC, most likely going to be in a recessionary gap. It means that, well, unemployment is higher or greater than the natural rate, and inflation rate is going to be low. Those are two symptoms of a recession, right? High rates of unemployment, low levels of output, so on and so forth. Okay. Now, if we are at a point to the left of the long-run Phillips curve, that represents an inflationary gap. We are overproducing, which means that we are under the natural rate of unemployment. If we're at 2% unemployment, we're going to be overproducing in the market, in the economy, and that means our inflation rate is going to be high. So now if we put those two together, okay, at full employment would be where the SRPC and the LRPC actually intersect, and that represents full employment for us. Okay. All right. So now let's go to slide number 12. Okay, slide number 12. Also, just a quick question while we get there. Do you guys, I know that in class we normally have a halftime. I don't know how long the stream is going to last. You guys had asked or recommended we do one stream. So I'm going to keep doing this. We'll do one stream. And if people missed the live stream, they can watch it later. But do you guys want a halftime? Do you want a break? It's where you can get up, move around, and then come back and we finish it up. Just let me know in the comments. All right. So let's look at slide number 12. Okay. The aggregates model and the Phillips curve. Right now, what we're trying to do is we're trying to see what is going to happen when we shift aggregate demand or aggregate supply, okay, in the aggregates model. Okay, guys, that sounds great. So what I'll do is this. I'll finish going over this, and then we'll do a break, and we'll come back, and we'll do some practice. How's that sound? Sound good? So we'll finish talking about what happens when it shifts. Then I'm going to give you guys some guided practice. We'll do some practice together. That'll take a little bit. We'll take a break in between. And this way I can go upstairs and check on my kids, make sure they're not destroying anything. It is eerily quiet upstairs, which kind of makes me nervous, not going to lie. All right, so here we go. Slide number 12. The aggregates model and the Phillips curve. We want to know, okay, what is going to happen in both graphs. Remember, this is macro now. All of these graphs are going to start to kind of hit on each other. So what happens if aggregate demand increases? Well, we know in the aggregates model on the left-hand side, aggregate demand is going to increase. And let's say that we start at the yellow point, which lets us know that we are starting at long-run macroeconomic equilibrium. If aggregate demand shifts to the right, we know a couple of things are going to happen. Price level is going to increase. What happens to unemployment, guys, when we increase aggregate demand? Let me know in the chat when you're looking at the graph on the left-hand side. Someone's name is Jesus Christ. Yes, Jesus. You may go to the bathroom. All right, good, guys. Okay, unemployment is going to decrease. Okay, so aggregate demand is going to shift to the right. Price level increases. Unemployment's going to decrease. Well, let's see how that corresponds in the Phillips curve. Okay, if we look at the right-hand side on the Phillips curve, we have the long-run Phillips curve and we have our short-run Phillips curve. We would start at the yellow point, which means that at full employment, we would start where the SRPC intersects the LRPC. And then we are going to slide aggregate demand to the right. Well, how do we show that on the Phillips curve? And this is the trick. And if you have a notebook handy, write this stuff down, okay? Anytime that aggregate demand shifts, this is a movement along the short-run Phillips curve. So in this case, aggregate demand is going to increase or shift out to the right. We are now going to move opposite direction of the aggregate demand shift, okay? And we're going to move up to the left along the short-run Phillips curve. Well, why does that happen? If aggregate demand increases to the right, we're now going to be producing at a point that's beyond our full potential. How do we get there? You have to lower unemployment. You said it yourselves, unemployment decreases once we increase aggregate demand. So price level increases, unemployment decreases. The rule is this: anytime aggregate demand shifts, you will move along the short run Phillips curve in the opposite direction. Okay, aggregate demand increases to the right, we move up to the left on the short run Phillips curve. If you look in the next slide, which is slide 13, which shows a decrease in aggregate demand, well, what happens? If there's a decrease in aggregate demand, we are going to move down to the right along the short run Phillips curve. And why does that happen? If we decrease demand, it means that price level will decrease and unemployment is going to increase. Well, why is unemployment going to increase? Well, because output is decreasing and price level goes down. If we're not producing enough, we're not hiring people. It's the same concept as to why recessions get worse before they get better. I heard it yesterday when I was at the store. I was at Target trying to pick up some toilet paper because God knows you can't find any anywhere. And I heard this gentleman on his phone who was just kind of screaming and yelling about the fact that like no one is spending money. And then he said what we talked about in class. Okay. He said he's not confident in the markets and he's just scared to spend right now because he doesn't know what his job prospects are going to look like in 6 months. And that is the reality. This is why recessions get worse before they get better. So if we're looking again at slide 13 on the left-hand side, aggregate demand is going to decrease. It's going to shift to the left. Well, what happens in our Phillips curve? Okay. Aggregate demand shifts to the left. We are going to move, okay, down to the right along the SRPC. And you can see that on the right-hand side of our Phillips curve, right? We started at the green point for initial equilibrium, and then we're going to move down to the right. Unemployment increases and price level gets lower. Okay, so again, I'll repeat it one more time. The trick for aggregate demand is this: whichever way aggregate demand shifts, you will move in the opposite direction along the SRPC in order to find your answers. Okay, awesome. 2 more, and then we'll take a break and we'll come back and I'll give you guys some practice. All right. So for number, we're going to be on slide 14. And this is now what happens when aggregate supply shifts. This is a little bit different. It's different than aggregate demand. So slide 14, looking at the left-hand graph, here we go. Okay. So in this instance, we are going to start at the yellow point on the graph, which is long-run macroeconomic equilibrium. We're going to have some type of event that is going to cause aggregate supply to shift to the left. I can think of one. We'll call it a supply shock. Currently, what is happening in our economy, right? So currently in our economy, we have a supply shock. Aggregate supply is going to shift up to the left, right? It's going to decrease. So we're going to go from the yellow point to the green point. Well, what happens? Guys, in the chat, let me know what concept is this called before I start talking about it. When aggregate supply shifts to the left, what concept is that? Yeah, there we go. Good job, guys. Okay, yeah, it is in fact stagflation, right? It's the worst case scenario for an economy, or at least conceptually what we talk about the worst case scenario. And we'll clarify this as it goes on. Obviously, we're seeing something we haven't seen in a while, so who knows? Coronavirus could break all the rules. So aggregate supply is going to shift to the left. We are going to have a stagflated economy. We know that we're going to see an increase in price level as well as an increase in unemployment. We know that because output is going to decrease. It's going to be less than our economy's potential. Well, this is an issue. When we changed aggregate demand on the Phillips curve, we were just moving along the curve because it was easy. Aggregate demand changes were representative of the normal trade-off between inflation and unemployment. When aggregate supply changes, it's a little bit different. It's kind of a rule breaker, right? So in this case, we're going to see an increase in both inflation and unemployment. The only way that we can show that on the Phillips curve is by shifting the entire short-run Phillips curve itself. Now, just like with aggregate demand, I give you guys a little bit of a trick. I give you a trick for aggregate supply as well. When aggregate demand shifts to the left or to the right, we move in the opposite direction along the SRPC. Well, we can kind of use that opposite rule for aggregate supply. When aggregate supply shifts, we will shift the entire SRPC in the opposite direction. So let's look at the Phillips curve on the right of this example. We had a negative supply shock, which is going to decrease aggregate supply, which is both increase inflation and unemployment. In our Phillips curve graph, we know that we're going to start at the yellow point, which represents the full employment of our economy. When we have a decrease or a negative supply shock, we have to show that both inflation and unemployment increased. So we have to shift the short run PC outwards. We have to shift it out, okay, to show the increase in both inflation and unemployment. Okay. Now let's look at slide 15 so we can see what happens in the other direction. Okay. So on the aggregates model, we're going to see an increase in aggregate supply. So what good, Dr. Cottrell, if you guys have been watching his daily videos, yesterday Dr. Cottrell asked a question to all of us and said, what good could potentially come out of everything that is happening in our world? And I think the answer is this. I think we're going to see tremendous innovation. I think we're going to see new markets, new way of doing things. I'm a firm believer in the quote that says that necessity is the mother of all invention. And I really do believe that. So what is going to happen? Let's say that we come up with new production techniques. We find ways to create new markets, whatever it might be. Okay, so we have some type of technological innovation that allows us to produce more. So in this case, if we have a technological innovation that is going to allow us to increase output, our short-run aggregate supply curve will shift to the right. Okay, so in this case, aggregate supply shifts to the right. That means that we're going to decrease price level and decrease unemployment. It's a good thing. We're going to produce more at a lower price, which means that if we're producing more and price is dropping, normally consumer spending is going to increase as price level drops. This is a good thing, best case scenario for the economy. So let's look at our Phillips curve. What's going to happen? Let's apply the cheat sheet or our little rule that we just implemented. Whichever way aggregate supply shifts, we will shift the short-run Phillips curve in the opposite direction. So aggregate supply shifted to the right. That means that the short-run Phillips curve must shift to the left in order for us to show both a decrease in inflation and a decrease in unemployment. And now you can see our SRPC1 intersects the long-run Phillips curve back at long-run macroeconomic equilibrium. Okay? All right, so that is it for this. I'm going to give you guys a quick break. I don't want to do like a full 5 minutes because that's just 5 minutes of dead air on the stream. So let's do this. I'll give you guys like 2 to 3 minutes. You want to get up, go to the bathroom, get a notebook, piece of paper, because we're going to do some practice problems together. And that's it in terms of what I'm going to be teaching you guys today about the Phillips curve. From here on out, we're just going to do a bunch of practice together. I'm going to be answering questions. So it's up to you if you want to stick around. If not, you can watch this video after I post it. Hopefully all of you stay and ask questions because now we're going to tie all of it together. We're going to practice the PPC, the business cycle, the aggregates model, and the Phillips curve. All right. So right now I'm going to put 2 to 3 minutes on the clock, and then when we come back, we'll get to it. Okay. So again, bathroom, drink, snack, whatever it is, grab a notebook. See you guys in 2 minutes. If you're hanging around, guys, tell me what you guys are doing. Like, what have you guys been doing, spending your days, like your time throughout your days? A lot of Xbox, the Warzone grind, quarantine and chill. Come on, Aiden. A lot of basketball. Nice. Is that sarcasm? Isabel, you have a ton of work? Be right back. Just filling up my water bottle. No sarcasm. That stinks. Sorry to hear that. Your teacher's just like crushing you guys with work. All right. Hopefully we're all back. Okay. If you are back, if everybody's back, just do me a favor. 1 or F, whatever you guys want to put in the chat, so long as it's appropriate. Aiden, I'm looking at you, my man. You sent me an email. This is not good. Oh man, there's a lot of emails in there. What did you guys do? Oh, thanks, Armand. Sweet, I really appreciate it. So what I'll do, Armand, is over the next 2 days. Welcome back to everybody. Armand, what I'm going to do over the next 2 days is I'm going to look at the link that you send me, try and figure out the whiteboard, and then we'll go from there. All right. Again, really appreciate the resources and information. Okay, guys, just another announcement I want to make before we get started here. Yesterday, I had a professor, Professor Tomlanovich, over at Drew University. He's a professor of economics. He's going to be hosting a live class tomorrow where he's going to be talking about the coronavirus and the economic implications in our country, I believe, as well as the global economy. He sent me a link to his Zoom meeting. I will put out on Google Classroom what time that takes place. I believe the lecture is at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. All of you guys are welcome to attend. If you can't attend the live lecture, he plans on posting that lecture itself on a YouTube channel. I will then share the YouTube channel or the YouTube link with you guys once he shares it with me. So for those who are interested, find this stuff interesting, want to know what's going on, you get to hear it from a real professor of economics, not some bootleg high school AP teacher, and we'll go from there. All right, so hopefully everybody has their notebooks. Okay, and I'm going to give you your first assignment, right? So the first question I would like you guys to do, and I almost just shut the stream off by accident because I'm special. All right, so first thing I would like you to do is this, okay? Using the following models. Better yet, I'm going to type it in a comment in the chat, okay? So look in the comment. All right, so using the following models, that would be the productions possibilities curve, the business cycle, the aggregates model, and the Phillips curve. I would like you guys to draw a recessionary gap. Start with the productions possibilities curve. Try not to cheat, and look at the PowerPoints. Try and do it on your own. Even if you're wrong, it's okay. We need to practice this. Drawing these graphs is kind of half the battle. And since I can't walk around in class and make you guys do this, doing it on your own is what's really going to help. Okay. Once you are finished, just write something in the chat. Let me know that you guys are all done, and then I will show you my work, and we'll go from there. Okay. If you guys have any questions throughout this process, just let me know. All right. So that's what we're doing right now. Thanks. I was trying to get my kids to come down and say hi to you guys, but I don't know. You have to use both. You have to draw the LRPC and the SRPC every time that you draw the Phillips curve. It's a good question. Probably put some music on, huh? Although I don't know if the music comes through really good, really well. Bad English. Trying to find a good song. Again, when you're done, just put a comment in the chat. Let me know. We can start. I don't know about you guys. I know you're a little bit older, but my kids just can't stop snacking. They're just eating everything in the house. Boredom just leads to continued levels of eating or increased levels of eating. Yeah, buddy. Big fan. Jack Johnson. Lasasso. Okay, good. So that's one person done. Again, let me know if you're finished, guys. Want to have a lot of dead air here on the stream. Am I going to buy a house now? Well, I was thinking about it. I did read yesterday, though, that because yields are down, that banks are actually still increasing interest rates. So despite all of the actions of the Fed, interest rates are actually still increasing. So it's something we got to kind of look at. But yes, I have definitely been thinking about buying a house. All right, good. We have enough people done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys, okay, my answers. And again, until I have the whiteboard function, which Armand gave me, I'll have that all done and ready to go, hopefully, for our next stream. So let's look at this. Okay. So hopefully everybody can see this. I'm going to turn the music off for now. Okay. So hopefully everybody can see this. Okay. So here is my my PPC. So we have a recessionary gap. If you can see, I spelled recessionary wrong because I'm special. All right. So we have our productions possibilities curve. We have capital goods and consumer goods. This is going to let us know that this is our full employment line, and I'm going to be producing at point A. Point A is inside of the productions possibilities curve. Now, it's going to bring us to our business cycle, right? We know that we have real GDP over time. This is showing us that real GDP is going to generally increase over time, and here are peaks and troughs. Now, as long as you drew the recession, okay, below the line of full employment, that works for me, okay? It doesn't necessarily have to be at the trough, but it has to be below the level of full employment for the business cycle. So PPC, business cycle, all right? Now, this is brutal. Okay, so now I'm like talking into the notebook. All right, so now here's our aggregates model, okay? So we're currently in a recession. This is our long run aggregate supply curve, which lets us know that our output at full employment, we are producing at a point that is below, okay? Our output is going to be below that of full employment. So we know that we're going to have higher levels of unemployment. Vertical axis is price level, horizontal axis is real GDP, okay? And then finally, our Phillips curve, right? So we have inflation, we have unemployment, we have our long run Phillips curve. I'm producing at a point that is beyond, okay, full employment, which means that our unemployment, it's inside of full employment. I got messed up. I want to make sure I didn't make a mistake. Yeah. Okay. So that we're going to be producing at a point that is beyond full employment, which means that unemployment rate is higher than the natural rate of unemployment. So point A is going to be to the right, okay, of our long run Phillips curve. All right. And that's what our graphs should look like. Any questions, put them in the chat. If there aren't any questions, do the same thing now for an inflationary gap. Okay. I'll put on another song. When the song is over, that will be your practice. Okay. And then that'll be pretty much it for class. Okay. So let's see. Thanks again, Armand. Really appreciate it, man. This stuff is awesome. Finished? Nice. That's two. Give a couple more, and then I'll show you mine, and we'll go from there. This should be easier since we've already done the first one. I think Pierce is in the live stream. Pierce, if you're still here, bud, it seems that we discovered yesterday that I guess Chromebooks don't allow students to make comments on live streams. So I spoke to G. I sent an email to G, rather. I sent an email to Mr. Flynn, things like that, asking for some type of workaround in order for you to make comments. So that's a good question. All right, here we go. I'm going to show you now my answers for the inflationary gap. All right, so here we go. Okay, so remember, it's just going to be the opposite of what we saw for the recessionary gap. All right, so here we go. Here is my productions possibilities curve. So we're going to have consumer goods and capital goods. This line represents full employment potential of the economy, producing two goods, maximizing all resources at full employment. Since we are going to be overproducing or producing an inflationary gap, okay, I am going to be at point A, which is outside the line of full employment. Okay, now that brings us to our business cycle. The vertical line is going to represent real GDP. The horizontal axis, not the vertical line, sorry, the vertical axis. The horizontal axis is going to represent time. Here is real GDP that's going to increase at full employment. If you can see here, there are the ebbs and flows. My point on the business cycle is going to be anywhere above real GDP at full employment. So whether it's at the peak or slightly above, that also works. All right. Now to the aggregates model. Now, as you can see, even with graphing paper, I still kind of made a mistake. So my inflationary gap is the smallest gap you could possibly have. So here we go. Vertical axis is price level. Horizontal axis is real GDP. YF represents full employment. YE represents us producing beyond full employment, which means that price level is going to be higher and unemployment is going to be lower than that of the natural rate of unemployment. So that brings us to our Phillips curve. We have our short run Phillips curve, our long run Phillips curve. We know that we are going to have a low rate of unemployment. So I'm now going to be less than the natural rate of unemployment. So this is that, below 5% marking here. As a result, price level is going to be a little bit higher. So I'm going to produce at point A, okay, on the short run Phillips curve. All right. Those are my answers, okay, for those two review questions. So now what your assignment is this. I put it up on Google Classroom. The assignment is there, the group FRQ for you guys to work on. If you have any questions from now until Monday, or if you just want to save your questions to Monday, guys, I don't really care if I have to push the test back. I'm not really too worried about that. So if we spend most of the time on Monday just going over this and practicing, I'm completely okay with that too. All right? All right. That's all I've got for today, guys. I really appreciate you all attending and at least continuing to try and pay attention to class and keep learning things like that. Or if you're just kind of hanging out because you got nothing else to do, appreciate that as well because it's better than doing nothing. Okay. Take care of each other. Stay safe. Stay active. And if there's anything you need from now until Monday, shoot me an email. And again, any and all feedback is welcomed and warranted. And that's it. I hope you all have a great day. I'll hang out for a few more minutes and answer some questions if you guys have any questions. But if not, maybe I'll see some of you in Warzone. Maybe not. Okay. Remember, my name in games is definitely not Mr. McSweeney. Thanks, guys. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Take care of each other. Be good. I'm real professional. I got the sweater on top, and then I'm wearing like mesh shorts and sandals. Thanks, guys. Be good. See you later, everybody who's leaving. All right, guys. I know there's still 11 people hanging around. I don't know if you guys have questions or if you just got nothing else to do. But I'm going to give it about another minute, and then I'm going to end the stream. Okay? All right, guys. Closing the stream. Be good. Have a great morning. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend. We'll see you guys on Monday. Have a good one. Bye-bye.